We're really excited about what we have to share today. We're planning on sharing a variety of updates, but before we begin, I want to remind everybody that this document contains forward-looking statements about our product direction and that the development, release, and timing of any features or functionality described for our products remains at the sole discretion of Storj Labs. The information herein is not a commitment to deliver any material, code, or functionality and should not be relied upon in making purchasing decisions. So just kind of your standard disclaimer there. To begin, we will address some general company updates, including some stats on momentum. After that, we will move to a roadmap where we will discuss what's on the horizon for the platform and what we're currently working on. After that, we'll share some updates about the community and some updates regarding media. And at the end, we'll answer some questions that were submitted in advance and throughout the presentation, starting with those that were submitted in advance. And if you have questions as we go through the presentation, please do send them to townhall@storj.io. And we will close at the end by sharing an overview of what you can expect in the next 90 days. So from there, I will turn it over to Sean Wilkinson, co-founder at Storj Labs. Sean, take it away.
Hello, hello. It is a beautiful sunny day in Atlanta, and we have a bunch of fun stuff to talk about. So I believe the best way to start off is first by talking about what is Storj for those uninitiated. So Storj is a platform, a utility token, and suite of open source applications providing end-to-end encrypted, distributed object storage. So simply, we do distributed, decentralized cloud storage, and our focus is really on distributed object storage, where a majority of the data that we store online is stored in these things called object stores. So a lot of people kind of think of Dropbox or these other providers when they think of cloud storage. And those applications actually don't really store any data. They shift all that data over to object stores, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. These are the large providers of these cloud storage companies, and they store it in this manner. So we're all about building this platform that can enable this, because again, that's where the data is actually stored. So kind of boiling down into this, we have applications. These are applications that you and I use every day to access and view our data. And on our platform, this data is encrypted, it's broken into small fragments, and then distributed to this network. And so a lot of the work that we do is around this platform that enables us to store that data on this massive network, handles things like contracts and replication, and it pays the users who are actually storing this data on their hard drive. And we're also, hard at work at building those tools that enable those developers to build those cool Dropbox-like applications. And in the back end of that, you have our awesome community that rent out their hard drive space and allow this network to be possible. So I think it's useful to go quickly and do a tech overview because I think it's useful in the course of the updates that we'll be giving in this town hall and the changes that we will be making in the next coming months. So when you store some data on this network, on the Storj network, you upload it through an application. That file is encrypted using only keys that you know of have access to because we're storing this on a bunch of untrusted nodes all over the world. So we want to make sure that data is encrypted. Only the user has access to it. Storj Labs or anyone else doesn't have access to that. That data is sharded or split into small pieces, and then it's distributed to the network. Now, one component of that is the bridge, which helps facilitate that process. When you go to upload data to the network, what computers do you put it on? There's tens of thousands of farmers available. Which ones are best? And so the bridge helps us with that operation, helps us establish who to store the data on initially, maintaining kind of the redundancy if any of those pieces disappear, and also helps the process of paying these farmers. Now, that process has allowed us to go from no data on the network, 0 bytes, to 30 petabytes of data. And we've come to the realization that while that system has worked up until this point, it does not work and allow us to scale into the future. So this update and this town hall is all about how we arrive to that in conclusion and how we attend on addressing that and really taking storage to the next level. Throughout the history of storage, we focus on iterating and learning, and really this model has allowed us to learn a lot about the network and a lot about building distributed storage. And so we're really excited to kind of share these updates with you and our learnings as we transition away from this bridge and move some of that functionality like contract renewal and replication and payment into the network, which will allow us to actually scale a lot better and handle the types of data and the needs that our customers expect of us. So I'm going to pass that on to Philip, and he's going to jump in with some fun company updates. I did forget one thing, the stats and the numbers. Some of this we covered kind of beginning in the last town hall, but the current numbers, we're storing 30 petabytes of data. That's a lot of data. We have 90,000 farmers supplying storage capacity. That's a lot of farmers. And we have 69,000 registered API users. We have some stats and graphs later on in the presentation so you can kind of see the growth. And an insane amount of monthly API transactions occurring in our platform. So again, that's just the high level numbers. Later on in the presentation, we'll cover some more of those in depth. So Philip, take it away.
Thanks, Sean. So there's been a lot of changes over the last few months. We've made 7 new hires, adding team members to engineering, marketing, and support. The previously time-locked 245 million tokens have been relocked for 6 months. We're going to go over recent releases and upcoming architectural changes as well. So let me introduce some of the new team members. First of all, we have Alexander Bender. He's joined us as our site reliability engineer. He's building and maintaining our infrastructure, build process, and keeping everything reliable. Alex is a huge fan of teas and chocolates. Next, we have Dennis Coyle. He's our lead software engineer who's leading our experimentation team. He's building a platform that allows easy execution of experiments and tests on top of our system, allowing us to take a data-focused approach when designing new features and making changes. Dennis is an avid kayaker when the weather is nice. Kishore Alaghetti is a senior software engineer specializing in C. He's currently working on lib storage features and performance. Kishore is a registered helicopter and airplane pilot that loves to teach and fly. Bonnie Adams has joined us as our head of people and culture. She's coordinating events, taking care of internal logistics, HR, benefits, as well as a ton of other responsibilities. Bonnie's a dog lover and rescuer. Atik Bana has joined as our UI UX lead. He's working on a number of things UI and UX related, including our website redesign, mobile app, and user experience flow, and user experience throughout our apps. Atik is a cheesecake lover. Jody Smith has joined as our director of content. She's bringing greater cohesion and consistency to all of our content to our many different audiences. Jody is one of the rare few to have gotten to interview Steve Jobs in the 90s, which is pretty cool. We have Ferris Huskovic. He's joined as our customer support engineer. He specializes in process and is working on automating and streamlining our support process. Faris is currently in school earning his BS in computer science. We're really excited to have all these new team members on board. Now I'll turn it over to John Gleason for some more product updates.
So the first thing I want to cover is our most recent token lockup. And so we completed our token lockup since the last town hall. The 245 million tokens were locked up for an additional 6 months. And so our plan is to roll out the Storj token distribution plan that'll govern and outline how we plan to use those tokens going forward. Our tokens are currently used on the platform for farmer payouts, for compensation related to different things such as the bounty program, and also for helping to fund third-party projects that are built on top of Storj. So they're a critical part of our ecosystem, and how we manage those has a lot to do with the health of that ecosystem going forward. And speaking of that ecosystem, I'm really excited to share with you some of the continuing success that we've had on the platform. So we've had steady and consistent growth for the last several months, right? We've had a huge increase in partners and customer interest. And let me just kind of share with you from a numbers perspective just what that translates into, right? So success means developer adoption,
Look
right?
at that growth.
I know, look at that growth, right? And so, I mean, when you see the number of people and the consistent, steady pace at which we've garnered that interest, right? And we only expect this to increase going forward, right? Because this is simply, you know, a change in the way people store data. And the more improvements we do to the platform, the better that growth will be. Success also means increased capacity, right? And so we've seen a consistent increase in the number of farmer nodes available. And you know, this is something where, you know, we really have to say thank you to the community here, because the community is what really drives this success. And of course, that capacity has to get used somehow, right? And so what we see here is increased usage. And so what usage is user activity. This is uploads, downloads, deletes, and things like that. And so when you look at this, we're seeing a lot of actual usage, right? Which is really important to us.
So I just want to put these numbers in perspective. A lot of people, when they think of storage, you know, they think of the blockchain aspects that we use, and there's some misconceptions that we use kind of blockchain behind the hood to store metadata related to files and other things in the platform. We primarily use it for payments. And I think these numbers illustrate it quite profoundly. So I did some calculations before the presentation. If you took the storage events in December, that would represent at about Ethereum's maximum capacity times 2, and that would cost $25 million using today's pricing in terms of transaction fees. So I think this is a clear point on the insane amount of growth that we have, and the real interesting and exciting technological barriers that we kind of have to come, which is this scale issue. And traditional platforms really don't have that. So a lot of fun stuff and a lot of inventing to get us to that scale. But also we need to do a lot more to get it to, you know, orders of magnitude more. Absolutely.
Especially when you look at the amount of data that's stored on the platform that related to those events, right? And it's only been growing and increasing. And now, you know, as it's at 30 petabytes and above, you know, that's the truest representation of success. But by the same token, right, that success has come with some growing pains. And you've heard consistently so far, and you're going to continue to hear, you know, that we've had to stop and make some changes here. And so one of the things that we've done with our growth is we've sort of looked at this in terms of our ability to continue that growth going forward. And so we are going to be talking very shortly here about some of the architectural changes that we're going to implement to address those limitations. But what we won't do is we won't let those limitations impact our current customer base. And so throughout this presentation, what you'll hear is some of the things about, you know, throttling of new users and the architecture changes. And really, we want to use this town hall as an opportunity to share exactly what we're doing and exactly what that means. And so I'm going to turn it over to Philip now to really talk about what's been going on recently in the platform since the last town hall, and then where we're going next with it.
Thanks, John. So there's a lot currently going on. We've made a lot of progress with our existing tools and platform, and taken on the challenge of building a fully distributed bridge, which is no small feat. Since the last town hall, we made some significant progress on the current developer tools and Bridge, as well as some changes to make sure that neither our rapid growth nor the new architectural changes to the Bridge impact any of our existing customers, which is really important to us. In addition to what we've done on the current platform, we've focused our efforts around the new Bridge architecture in 4 key areas: stability and reliability, scalability and performance, usability, and developer tools. First, let's talk a bit about the work that we've been doing over the last couple of months. We made quite a bit of progress on a few things that have been high priority for the community. We executed the first farmer payouts from Ethereum smart contract, which is a big deal. Payments using the smart contract are more reliable and hands-off. This will provide the base from which we build a better, more automated farmer payment system. We added additional features to Storj, providing a more familiar experience when interacting with the CLI. We added the ability to resume downloads and are currently working on resuming uploads as well. User throttling and sign-up is soon to be enabled. While it's not been the most popular decision with new customers, developers, or farmers, we made the decision to throttle new users to make sure that service to our existing customers aren't impacted. The issues we discovered related to scalability and the current Bridge architecture presented a risk to the current customer experience. For that reason, we decided to put a hold on new customer and developer registrations to minimize the risk to current customers while the Bridge re-architecture is underway. Now let's talk a little bit about the work that's coming up related to designing and building a new distributed Bridge. The work that we're doing is mapped to the 4 primary areas where we want to see improvements in the new architecture. So what's changing and what's not? It's important to mention. So tools like the CLI and our libraries will change very little. Only the way that these libraries connect to the network will be changed. The way that Storj share finds and communicates with other nodes on the network will change. Additional responsibilities will be added to Storj share, such as maintaining a small portion of a distributed database, which holds the pointer data. So what have we done so far on the new system design? We've started planning our research breakouts. We've begun research, started writing spec proposals, outlining what we will and will not be building in our MVP. We've identified our continuing development and support plan for the current API implementation. For architecture changes, we'll be moving away from a centralized API and database and implementing an experimentation platform and framework. On our roadmap update, we're currently working on a roadmap that will address our architectural changes. We will include current API support, maintenance, and fixes. So for each of those 4 areas, for stability and reliability, first, we know the limitations and weak points of the existing system. We're building something that's entirely new, and the data we have from operating the current Bridge gives us a significant advantage in driving a new architecture forward. Regarding scalability and performance, the current Bridge architecture has the inherent flaw of being a single point of failure. At the same time, the architecture of the existing Bridge limits the peak performance we can achieve with the platform. The new architecture is being designed so that we can achieve the best performance improvements that will let us address the broader range of use cases for object storage and one day achieve CDN levels of performance. Regarding usability, we're designing from the user experience forward, keeping the user first in mind. Major focus on usability and existing system will, major focus on usability on existing systems and new systems. Regarding developer tools, we're making it even easier for developers to build on top of our platform, improving the tools available to developers, primarily Storj and the language and binding support. New tooling to make it easier to publish high quality and easy to use documentation, and of course, actual documentation. Lots of it. So on our current quarter roadmap, much of the work that's been going on in the current quarter so far has been related to the re-architecture of the Bridge, has been research and requirements definition. The nature of that work doesn't produce a lot of release artifacts. It makes it difficult sometimes for the community to stay up to date with what we're doing. The main body of our work over the last several weeks has been heavily weighted in favor of the research part of R&D. We're now transitioning more into development. So let me quickly recap what's been going on so you have some greater visibility into where we are and what's next. We've identified all of the potential areas affected in our product and network. We want to make sure that as we make changes that the current system stays as stable as possible. We've identified all known issues with the current centralized approach. We've identified all known attack vectors and set up breakouts for design solutions. We've captured the current user experience and designed an even better one that will build into the updated platform. We're researching distributed database and network communication methods to find the best one for our use case. We're addressing testing and experimentation in a distributed system, as this will be quite different from our current bridge setup. Designing multiple points of entry to the network that are also distributed or decentralized, like ES or Ethereum smart contracts. We're working on designing the user access control and payment system. We're designing methods for determining which nodes are telling the truth, potentially based on consensus models. We're still completing the design on many of the critical components, but the initial work for establishing the framework for A/B testing and concurrent deployment are underway. We're also putting a lot of work into redesigning our developer tools, especially the redesign of the website. We're working hard to consider who our users, customer, community members, and who they are and what the most streamlined approach for them will be. We're building a better support experience with updated content, including FAQ, how-tos, and more. We're adding a community page aimed at featured developers and community members, events, updates on Storj and community, keeping engagement, and along with newsletters and blog. For our website, we're going to be using Wagtail. It'll provide a more streamlined way to make updates to our website. For API documentation, we're going to be using Slate, which is it helps us do automated generation of beautiful API documentation. For guides and tutorials, we're going to be using Read the Docs. Now I'll hand it off to Nadine to talk a bit about community.
Hi everyone, I'm so excited to talk about the community. We have a lot of exciting things going on. As Sean mentioned, we have about 69,000 or so registered API users. During the last town hall, the number was around 47,000, so we have grown in that sense. In terms of our Rocket Chat community, it continues to grow. We have 12 active community leaders and Storj team members that are moderating not only the various channels for support, but also offering lifetime support in terms of language. And then also, from the last town hall, we had 13 petabytes of the amount of data that's stored on the network, and currently we are around 30 petabytes. So that's grown more than a factor of 2, which is awesome. And our current goal, as we talked about the re-architecture of the bridge, is to maintain these numbers and maintain our current support for our community as well. So Philip talked a little bit about our documentation. We are currently investing a lot of time into our developer docs or farmer docs and essentially our token holder docs. And we're going to continue developing, and our goal is to roll this out during the early fall. We'll also have a beta rollout through our community as well. As we also improved our customer support, and we're going to continue improving it throughout these months and throughout this year. We launched our new webpage to improve our support process. So we have easy self-troubleshooting, we have faster response times, and there's also an easy way to reach out on Rocket Chat as well. So highlights from this quarter, we are currently anticipate rollout of our GANI program around the end of March, and it's going to be a beta rollout, and we'll definitely announce that on our Twitter as this rolls out. In terms of events attended, we attended Token Summit around December 2017, which was a success. We actually led the blockchain track during Silicon Slopes. Sean and I were at the TAB conference to talk about blockchain and Storj, as well as I was on a women's panel to talk about women in blockchain. And finally, we sponsored ETH Denver Hackathon, and we had 3 winners that used Storj, that implemented the Storj library in their projects. And we'll roll out blog posts for the winners that won the Storj sponsored prizes. In terms of our communication, our next town hall will be around May 2018, and we'll definitely announce that on Twitter when we have an official date. We're going to continue with our blog posts, and obviously if anyone wants to reach out or have comments or suggestions, they can reach out on Rocket Chat. And finally, our newsletter rollout will be around April 2018, and we'll definitely announce that when we have a final date for that. So I'm gonna hand it over to Dan for our media.
Hello again, everybody. So over the past 3 months, we've had several notable announcements. This next slide takes a look at all of the highlights that we've had over the past 3 months. I'm trying to get the slide to change. There we go. So the first announcement is, and probably the biggest, is the architecture update announcement, which was announced at the beginning of January and was covered by Computer World and several other outlets. And I know we've covered this, so I won't dive into details, but we're really excited about the updated architecture that we're planning to release later this year. And we'll continue to work with media surrounding that. We also announced 2 new partnerships this past quarter. The first was with distributed compute platform SONM, which many of you are probably familiar with. Similar to how Storj provides decentralized cloud storage, SONM does the same for compute. And so through that partnership, we're really excited because we will jointly be the first to deliver a complete decentralized cloud computing platform. And then the next partnership was with Doc AI, and Doc AI is integrating their platform with Storj, and Doc AI is aiming to decentralize precision medicine with AI, and they're using Storj as their data layer. And they collect patient data with permission of users to provide clustered predictive modeling for data scientists. And as we mentioned earlier, we also, I think it was mentioned by John, we also announced that we have relocked 245 million Storj tokens and are planning to release a Storj token distribution plan that will highlight how we plan to use those tokens in the future. We've also made announcements with around several exchanges listing Storj token. That includes Shapeshift and Changely, which Changely was a relisting, and Upbit, as well as several other smaller exchanges like Token Feed and CoinOXO. And we've also had quite a bit of media coverage over the past 3 months in the form of profiles and thought leadership, like contributed articles and news around company updates that we have put together. So this next slide takes a look at some of the most notable articles from the past quarter, and I won't get into details on each one of them, but I'll summarize it to say that from a PR and communications perspective, we're continuing to seek out reporters of the highest quality to build relationships with them, educate them on the broader industry, and make ourselves a resource to them for articles they're working on. So as you probably have noticed over the past 3 months, we've been quoted in several articles that relate to the broader industry. And that's through relationships that we've continued to cultivate with media. We see there's a huge opportunity for companies in the blockchain and decentralized application space to elevate the conversation beyond just the price of Bitcoin and Ethereum, and really go into how the technology is impacting the world. And that's kind of been our media strategy as we work with these folks. So stay tuned. We believe that the best is yet to come, and there's much more on the horizon. So with that, I think we're ready to begin the Q&A. And so what we will do is I will go over the questions, and we will have different members of the Storj team answer them. Okay, flipping over to my questions. And so the first question is, and this one would be for Philip. We know the cry of "have payments gone out yet?" being asked in the chat from the second of each month until they actually go out. Would it not be better to have a set time frame for each step in the payment process?
So we definitely know this question. It's a good idea, and it's something that we plan to implement in the future. We would probably be looking at doing payments on a set day of the week per month, like the first Monday of the month or second business day for the month, rather than a specific day in case the month closes on a weekend.
Great. The next question was, when will auto renew for files be ready with SIP9, or will it take longer? This is very important to me as a developer, so I can introduce storage as a way for storing files?
Sure. So we're currently in the final stages of testing the auto renewal of contracts. This will go live very soon. We're really excited to get it out. We have deployed contract renewal to our staging environment, and we'll deploy it to production as soon as testing is complete.
Great. With GDPR becoming enforceable in May this year in Europe, can you comment on the implications for farmers offering storage capacity?
Sure. So with the intended design of the architecture update we plan to deploy later this year, delivering a platform that's GDPR compliant will be much easier, a much easier addition than with the current architecture. The new architecture will give people in the network the ability to add new attributes to a client selection process like farmer score or performance. This would allow us to only select nodes in Europe or for European platforms that would like to be GDPR compliant. A similar question asked about increasing the likelihood that shards would be stored in the same countries where they were uploaded. This would fall under the same capability. This is definitely on the roadmap, but not in the short term. Keep an eye out for more details on this in future town halls and newsletters, but it's not something we're currently focused on due to the architecture changes. There's also a similar question. Are there any plans to introduce regional weight to upload and download of shards, i.e. nodes in the same country is when we're getting slightly higher chance to host shards, or the opposite, where regions have a slightly lower chance if the region has a higher number of nodes to renters. So this answer previously mentioned covers that question as well.
Great. The next question was about SIP9 development. In what state is SIP9 development?
So just for clarity, SIP9 is a proposal to more accurately account for bandwidth usage by a bridge and to ensure that shards can be successfully transferred between the client and farmer by building reputation metrics based on successful transfers. There's a lot wrapped up in the SIP9. Happy to say that all of the code is complete, minus one potential pending issue that we're aware of. Once that's addressed, we will merge test and staging and deploy to prod if all goes well.
Okay, the next question was about file sharing. Where are you at with file sharing?
File sharing is another feature in which we see a significant amount of interest from developers and partners. We've been researching several approaches for file sharing, but the solution is not as simple as when using traditional methods of storage without the privacy and security afforded by encryption, encoding, and distributed storage. We have an active R&D project for file sharing that's operating concurrently with the re-architecture build. We expect to have the initial release for file sharing later this summer. It should provide a solution for the most common use cases for which we've received requirements.
Okay. The next question, are you developing APIs for apps so that creating and paying for storage usage can be done seamlessly, meaning that users don't need to navigate to the storage site and create an account there?
So you can break this up into three aspects of the platform API. First, there's a user account creation, the ability to programmatically create a user without the user interacting with or even being aware that the storage platform exists. Second, there's the identity and access management component for those programmatically created users, the ability for an application to create and store data on behalf of a user without that user being able to access that data outside the business logic of the application. Third is billing and value attribution, which are key to this function as well. The ability to aggregate usage and billing programmatically for programmatically created users easily is critical for development and partners building apps that leverage storage for their object storage layer. So identifying and identity and access management along with billing and value attribution will be first-class citizen once the re-architecture project is complete. It's likely that not all of this feature will have been completed by the end, but it should be easy to add.
Great. With the re-architecture and the decentralization of the bridge function, will there be changes to the storage API? And a related question, when developing apps that use storage as the object layer, what is the recommended approach?
So these are actually pretty significant and really important. So the short answer is yes, we do expect that the API will change enough to impact apps that have been built to call the storage API directly. The change in architecture necessitates changes to the way that we expose and manage API calls today. And to get the improvements in scalability, we need these changes. They're completely unavoidable. With regards to the preferred approach to development, we strongly recommend using libstorj C library. At the same time, we're undertaking the bridge re-architecture project. We're putting work into libstorj. Once most of the significant benefits to using our library will be that we'll be doing everything we want, everything we can to minimize the level of effort required to navigate transition to the architecture when using libstorj. It's probably also worth noting that libstorj has gotten some significant improvements in performance, concurrent file handling and resuming, concurrent downloads recently. We'll be working to expand support for languages and bindings as we go forward. We just kicked off an initiative to make major improvements to our developer documentation, and libstorj will be the primary focus of that initiative.
Okay, next question has to do with farmers. Do you project to offer more flexibility for the price of contracts for farmers, or will you keep a fixed common price?
So once the decentralized cloud storage market becomes more competitive, we do plan to provide more flexibility for the price of storage contract farmers. As you've seen on our roadmap, we're also planning on delivering specific services like archival, CDN, and GDPR. As we roll out these services, they'll also come with different pricing structures for developers and partners building on the network. Higher pricing scenarios will also mean higher payouts for farmers, which is great. This could create an environment where perhaps new farmers are automatically assigned to the default services. And as the farmer scores increase or decrease, they would be assigned to different tiers that better fit the services they're delivering. In addition, the platform re-architecture will also result in efficiencies in the way that we're storing data. That will also result in increased farmer payouts as a percentage of the price of data stored. One example is that as we increase reliability and visibility, we can reduce the number of mirrored shards in the platform.
Okay, great. Are you working on a solution to distribute the bridge so we can remove a single point of failure? I know that files can be retrieved without the bridge, and even with odds, even the odds to farmers that are in other countries to get contracts on equal term with farmers that are closer to the bridge.
As we mentioned earlier, in January, we announced that we're currently updating the architecture to remove the bridge as a central point of failure. Not only will this help remove a single point of failure, it'll also allow us to build a network that can scale into the exabyte range. A farmer's distance from the bridge shouldn't impact their ability to receive contracts. That was actually the purpose of the bridge, to ensure the entire network was better utilized. When the function serviced by the bridge today is fully decentralized and the new architecture is in place, it becomes much easier for us to add new attributes for farmer selection and expose those attributes through the libstorj client. Those attributes extend the current automated functions for farmer selection related to farmer reputation score and response time, and put the client application more in control of farmer selection. This will naturally result in an improvement of the distribution of data across farmers, particularly as we see broader adoption of a platform based on the ability to serve a wider range of use cases. With the decision to begin the bridge re-architecture project, we had to make some hard decisions about what additional work we could complete on the existing bridge and what would be incorporated into the new decentralized bridge architecture. Any work we do on the existing bridge that isn't transferable to the new decentralized bridge is lost opportunity. We received tremendous support for the decision to make this architectural change, the bridge, from the entire community.
Okay. The next set of questions have to do with personnel on the Storj team. The first one is, how do I know you guys aren't from the future sent here to steal our coffee?
Okay, whoever sent this, we know who you are, and we're gonna have to find you and discover how you obtain our master plan. Not cool. Probably use some kind of quantum computer or something like that.
Yeah.
Broken the encryption.
Yeah.
We're doomed.
Yeah, we're all doomed.
The next question was about the developer team size. How big is your developer team and what positions are you hiring for?
So it's grown quite a bit since the last town hall. Last count were 12 full-time developers, at least. We keep on adding engineers right and left. So please go on the website, check our job page if you're a developer. We were really, really growing on the developer side. We have a lot of engineering to do. And if you're a developer, you're interested in crypto, interested in distributed systems, definitely go to storj.io and look at our job section.
Great, thanks, Sean. The next question, and there were some similar questions about exchanges, but they kind of relate to the Storj token. This question was about a specific exchange. Ethnix is now live and with support from their parent company Bitfinex, promises to be one of the bigger exchanges for ERC20 tokens. Are you guys in talks with them to get Storj listed there?
Yeah, so having a lot of liquidity to the token is important for the ecosystem because we issue a lot of tokens to our farmers, and not all of our farmers will turn around and purchase Storj on the platform with those tokens. So we're always working to have Storj listed on as many exchanges as possible. And we feel we've done a really good job at this so far. But we would encourage our community to reach out to these exchanges directly because that's how they see the demand, and that's largely how they make a lot of these decisions in terms of what tokens they're going to list. So, similar questions we've seen are, what's the overall strategy for getting the token out there and traded, and are we trying to get listed on as many exchanges as possible? And really what we're focused on is making sure that we have a lot of demand for the token by making sure our platform is the best decentralized and distributed storage solution out there. And that's what's going to drive that utility. But similarly, we understand that the community needs liquidity. And so we would encourage you to go ahead and reach out anywhere where it's not listed where you want to see us and show that there's demand for our token.
Great. The next question, are you not accepting new renters? How about developers? I think we should still allow them to join the old network and start building an app.
Yeah. So we are still accepting new renters, but what we're doing is we're putting them on a wait list before they can begin using the network. And we're being very careful right now to keep that balance to make sure our current customers don't get impacted, right? Because our main concern is less about individual developers right now and more about the major partners and where we could receive stress on the network that could impact their experience. With the current architecture the way it is, the network just can't handle a massive spike in traffic. And so we have, it's killing me to say this, we have suspended new user registrations right now just to make sure that we don't have service interruptions for our existing customers who I care deeply about. But it stresses me out more than the network to say that I have to turn somebody away. So, when the new network goes live, it will be able to scale to that exabyte range, and we will basically open up the floodgates on the waitlist for renters. But by the same token, we do still continue to welcome new farmers, right? Get an understanding, add capacity to the network, because, as soon as we are able, we will open the floodgates on that demand.
Okay, great. The next question was half answered during the call, but I think, John, you could probably still address this a little bit, but do you have the latest numbers on total data stored on Storj? And will there be a tool coming out to show this in real time?
So, right now, I think we went over some of the data pretty carefully in the preceding slides. But what I will say is it wouldn't be too hard for a community member to build a dashboard like that. I think if you've seen some of the visualization tools like the one built by Little Skunk, one of our community members, this would be a similar effort. But, again, as we're focused on the new network from a user experience first, I think that we will be incorporating, a number of these things and making the user experience more intuitive in terms of visualization of the tools. But between now and then, feel free to jump in and build something. Otherwise, stay tuned and see what comes next.
Okay, great. The next question was, how are you different from IPFS? And will Storj be in trouble when Filecoin comes to market because you don't use the blockchain to store data?
So let me break these down into two questions. So how are we different from IPFS? So IPFS is a way for people to find and address data on a distributed network. It's really, really interesting and cool project. But what it does not allow you to do is guarantee that that data will be around 5 minutes after you store it. So the real difference is In Storj, you can store that data and have guarantees around the availability of that data after you store it as well. So it's really kind of Apple's oranges comparison. IPFS helps you find data on these distributed networks. Storj actually stores the data and allows you to find it as well. So the second question will be in trouble when Filecoin comes to market. Filecoin has their work cut out for them. As I said before, only storing 30 petabytes of data pretty much maxes out as far as transactions, something like Ethereum twice over with millions and millions of dollars in fees. So no one's really has a really great solution. There's a lot of in theory solutions to this, but they're all being built out, and there's a lot of guesses and assumptions and things that just have never been tested. So I think it'll be interesting to see kind of what they develop and build out. And we don't really see them as a problem or a competitor. We're really focused on like the big guys, the people like the Amazons and the Googles and the Microsofts that are storing 1,600 exabytes of data, right? So if we can even capture like 0.1% of those large kind of incumbent cloud storage providers, then we're wildly successful. So we're really focused on the top level providers, the providers that store majority of the world's data and disrupting them and providing really competitive and different features, performance and price to them. But we're definitely really interested and excited to what's going on in decentralized spaces. People try to push this technology forward and really try to make it scale.
Great, thanks, Sean. So there were a couple questions that came in during the town hall meeting. Someone asked, is there any news on an updated schedule on a .NET C# wrapper for storage? There's still no real way to interact with the network from .NET.
So I don't believe on our team we have any experienced .NET developers. So that's something that we would kind of turn to our bounty program, which is coming out shortly to kind of get our community's help and input on that to build that out. What we do have is lib storage and other base level libraries where you could create bindings to a .NET library where you don't have to do a lot of work in implementation. But again, it just comes down to we don't have, I think, a lot of .NET talent, so we're really pushing towards the bounty program to be able to solve that.
And I might add to that too. So we're going to be working with engineering and support to make sure we come up with a program. So if developers are using, the C library and want to build a binding for .NET or anything other, then there'll be some sort of program to help them facilitate that process and that building.
Yeah. So if there's any, bindings or things that are missing, definitely let us know. And like Nadine said, we'll try to establish more programs to help that built out, through the context of our bounty program, which I think is the best way.
I know that there actually have been talks in our community with a community member about .NET bindings already, so it might come sooner than you think.
Yeah, a lot of these integrations, it's funny. People will address a problem or we want some kind of thing, and we start working on it, and the community member just happens to finish it. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah, that's definitely needed tool set.
Great. The next question was, will there be a way to share specific buckets with an app? Imagine an app like GooBox. I can only share my whole storage account with that app, so I have to trust it. What about giving access to a specific bucket only and providing like a secret key that restricts access to that bucket? And then they kind of elaborate on that and ask about possibly a read-only bucket.
Yeah, so we've gotten a lot of interest from a number of partners and a lot of developers in terms of the features around file sharing. I think we talked a little bit earlier about the current state there. And over the next few months, concurrent with the Bridge project, we are looking very closely at file sharing. And these are the types of use cases that we're hearing over and over again. And these are the sorts of things that we want to address, right? But again, there are a lot of challenges around doing that with the distributed and decentralized file storage. And sort of maintaining that level of security and privacy while introducing the capabilities for file sharing. But again, we are, as we get through the first stage of this project and we start to put things out, our development stages into GitHub, we'd encourage the community, to be able to participate in that project and contribute, because it is an interesting thing, but at the same time, it's very important, clearly, to our community.
Absolutely, and to note, it is definitely being considered as a first-class citizen in the design for the distributed bridge.
Great. Okay, I think those are all the questions that we received.
Thanks. So, to close, I have to say, since joining Storj 2 years ago, I've continually been impressed by our product team and the passion which we have internally as a company. I can't tell you how excited I am to be part of this project, especially as we journey into the third version of our architecture. We have a dedicated, passionate, and extremely vocal community of developers, farmers, partners, and fans who believe in our project and the future of decentralized applications and distributed storage. The early signs are here. Studies are showing that people's priorities online are shifting, and for the first time, security and privacy are more important than convenience, which is way different than it's been in the past. Significant investments by mainstream technology companies in decentralization, blockchain are underway, which it really validates all of our hard work. The amount of data being produced is quickly surpassing traditional storage infrastructure, ability to securely and efficiently store that data. Finally, the entry of established technology business leaders into the decentralized app space is signaling a growth and interest in Web 3.0 technologies. In the wake of the increasing pace of data breaches, ransomware, and the barrage of cyber attacks on so many different fronts, the benefits of decentralized applications are finding their place, finally. We are a leader in the next evolution of the internet, and with the support of the community, we will fundamentally change the way that information is stored. But from all of us at Storj, thank you. We couldn't be more happy to be at the center of this excitement.